919.
Thank you so much, Lesedi, for that traffic report here. And many South Africans own one or two actually own one or two investment properties, should I say, and ask the same question: should I save money by renting it out myself, or is a professional rental agent worth the cost? Today, we'll unpack the pros, the risks, and how landlords can protect one of their biggest investments this afternoon, because we do have Harry on the line from Etchells & Young. Harry, welcome to the show, and thank you very much for joining us.
Awesome, Stash. Thanks so much, man.
Hello, Harry.
Hi, Lesedi.
You don't
nice
sound
to
too
chat
good.
to you. I got a little bit of a croaky voice today again.
A bit of a frog in the throat, as they would say.
That's it. And just amazing how this flippin' flu is going around. I heard you guys talking that you also had a little hiccup yesterday, Lesedi. Hope you're better.
Yeah, a lot of us are under the weather. But the show's got to go on, right? Property's still got to move. Show's got to go on.
Someone's got to pay the bills.
Somebody's got to pay the bills.
And also somebody's got to make the money at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So let's get into...
who better than your unbiased estate agent to answer that question that Stats just posted?
Exactly. And by unbiased, we mean Etchells & Young, for the people in the back.
Yes, of course.
So let's get into it, right?
Yes. In this sense, Harry, I'd like to. There's a couple of talking points we're going to be chatting today. It's obviously to save in terms of like the placement fees. What do estate agents cost? What is some of the maybe good or bad experiences that may come about from being with an estate agent or something to that effect. Lesedi, you've got something you want to say as well from this side.
I think maybe let's start with obviously when you're a landlord, when you decide to become a landlord, one of the first questions that you ask yourself
is it worth it?
Yeah, like, am I going to get an estate agent to run the rental, or am I going to do it myself? Right? That's like one of the first questions that you would ask.
You think about it. So
Yeah.
yes, Harry. So you're gonna have to let us know about this. I mean, what's better as an individual? Do I run it myself because I think saving money maybe in that sense, or do I have somebody like Etchells & Young run it for me on my behalf?
So that is the crux of what we come down to here. It is all about the cost, because I mean, to be completely honest, to use an estate agent can be expensive if you look at the percentages that you're going to pay to place a tenant as well as to manage the property on an ongoing basis. And I mean, just let's see what those costs are. So the rule of thumb cost to place a tenant is basically 1 month's rent. So you're losing the first month immediately of your 12 months rent. You're down to 11.
Yeah.
And from an ongoing management point of view, you're going to pay anywhere between about 5 to about 10% of the rent per month, which quite quickly adds up to another month's rent over the next 12 months. So it is expensive. But I guess one has to look at that this is definitely therefore not going to be for every single landlord. But there must be a pretty good reason why some of our clients who own 160, 180 units come to us and say, place our tenants and manage a property. Simply because it's not always that straightforward as simply a mathematical equation. There is quite a lot more that goes into it than just that.
Why do a lot of landlords decide to do this in the first place? Is it just the cost matter that they decide that, no, I'd rather just keep that money to myself?
So, generally speaking, individual landlords who've got one or maybe two properties may think, look, for that cost, I can definitely handle this and do it myself. And then they think that the cost that they're paying to the agent does not justify the expense and the service that they're getting. And remember, I started off by speaking about a tenant placement fee of 1 month and then a management fee throughout the year. So not all tenants that we place are managed. Some owners come to us and say, place a tenant only, I'll manage this myself.
So
and that
Sorry about
Sorry,
that.
Stash, you
No, Harry, that was my fault. Yeah, continue. Sorry about that.
No, so I was really just saying it depends on the landlord's individual knowledge and skill and his appetite to spend time on this property. Your perfect tenant who pays his rent on time, upfront every month, never has a hassle. Why must I pay an agent to collect the rent when the guy pays anyway?
So in essence, as you're saying, I mean, it's pretty much the process looks simple until something actually goes wrong, and then you realize the depth that you're in to try and sort everything out.
That's exactly it. It's when those things that can go wrong, and I'm sure we're going to chat about that, that's when you start thinking about, geez, do I do this myself or not? And the amount of calls we get from a landlord who's desperate, I've got one on my desk right now. My tenant hasn't paid rents for 6 months. Please help. When the guys have stopped paying the rent, when they're not performing so nicely, that's when the guys come to us and say, please help. I thought I could do this, but I can't. And in the same way, when we run things perfectly and beautifully, that's when that landlord says, but why am I paying you so much money? Let me do it myself.
Yeah. So let's discuss some of these things that might go wrong if you decide to do this yourself.
So obviously, the very, very first one from my side is choosing and screening and placing the right tenant. Credit checks, affordability, confirming employment, doing all the reference checks. All of these things are critical. If you miss a couple of steps, it could be a huge problem. The number of fraudulent documents out there right now, pay slips, employment contracts. And these guys are getting smarter and smarter and using AI and all sorts of sophisticated tools to make this look legit. And unfortunately, and this is not a ploy to try and scare landlords into using an agent, because agents can also make mistakes. There's no 100% guarantee. But most definitely, when we do these things properly, and because we do hundreds of these a week, we kind of get a feel for it. And you then start reducing the chances of placing a poor tenant. You start spotting those fraudulent documents, even if they are very, very polished. We have an exceptionally good lease that's balanced and protects both parties, but also represents the transaction. And as I've often said to Al in the show before, what is the transaction? The landlord's giving you his 2 million rand property to live in, and you paying him $15,000 a month. Who's got more at risk here? It's the landlord, and therefore the lease does need to protect the landlord's interests whilst not affecting the tenant's rights in any way, and making sure he enjoys what he's paying for. And he is still paying a lot of money every month to live in that property.
What about poor inspections, though? Is that something that maybe you could, because as I'm thinking about it now, I'm thinking, if you don't do your inspections properly also, as a landlord, that could come out and bite you in the... I'm not going to say in the wild.
Well, Lesedi, these inspections are such a crucial thing. It's not only poor inspection. A poor inspection is better than no inspection. No inspection by a landlord, and the number of cases, again, that just get referred to us on an ad hoc basis. My landlord wants to hold my deposit, but he didn't do an entry inspection with me. Unfortunately, many landlords don't know. They think they know everything about the Rental Housing Act, the Consumer Protection Act, POPI, and all the other legislation that gets thrown around. If you don't do an entry inspection with your tenant, you can't hold them liable for anything at the end. Any deductions, no matter what the condition of that property. And landlords don't know that. Doing that inspection properly protects you down the line from the landlord's perspective, but also from the tenant's perspective, so that if there is a pre-existing bit of damage, that's recorded. You can't hold the tenant liable for that at the end of the lease then. So inspections and keeping good records of those inspections is very, very important.
So what does a rental agent, and I think we've covered some of this already, but what does a rental agent do? What are the benefits of having a rental agent? Obviously, there's that, you spoke about inspections now, having somebody that has done this and does this professionally and would know what inspections need to be done when and why. But what are some of the other benefits?
So the first thing is marketing the property, Lesedi. And Google changes its algorithms every other week. Knowing how to market it correctly so that it's at the top of all of the search engines, not only Google, but Facebook, but everywhere else. So getting that property professionally marketed, you're competing with many other properties out in the market. So doing the marketing and the advertising correctly, the screening, as I mentioned. We have a team of people that do this. It's not just the landlord on his own when he's got a break 10 minutes at his lunch hour at work to make a few calls.
Yeah.
Knowing who to call, knowing what to look out for, knowing when to spot the phone number that the guy's given to you as my reference, whether they're a legit reference or not. You know, our lease agreement, we've got 20 years of intellectual property that's gone into that lease agreement, over and above all of the legal, the law firms' help that we've got, the pros to give us input into that. The inspections we spoke about, collecting the rent, making sure that you get every last bit out of the tenant, spotting the normal stories that you hear. You quickly start realizing when a tenant is genuine and when they're not. You know, coordinating the maintenance for them, the hours that this takes to get things sorted out, and then of course making sure that everything's up to date with all the latest legislation and all the ongoing work that goes into just making sure you're delivering a fantastic service and a good product back to a client, to a landlord.
No, Harry. In that sense, I mean, obviously, I'm listening intently here with between you and the city in terms of what you've just said, and just listening to some of your comments in terms of hidden costs and the viewing of the properties, as well as the time that it might take for advertising, and you're going up against, like you say, big advertising houses, such in the property business. I'm saying here, who in actual fact should manage their own rental? I mean, who in your view should manage their own rentals?
So I think number one is if you have the aptitude for this. So if you've been in this for years and years, potentially you have a flatlet on your own property, so you're right there. Or otherwise, you've owned this property for a while. You're in property in one way or another. Maybe you're a lawyer. Maybe you have a family business, and you understand property. You're able to get the updates. The second landlord category, I would say, is where you own quite a few properties. Maybe you have a firm, even an engineering firm, but you have capacity in your firm where people can actually spend the time to do the invoicing, to send the rental invoices out. It's now more than one. You can attend a couple of webinars with TPN or the Financial Intelligence Center or the PPRA just to glean and get a bit of extra info. And then obviously the third category is going to be, let's say you're a property developer and you already have all the skills, all the background. You're registered with the PPRA already, and you have a department inside your business that's going to collect those rentals for you. So those would generally be the categories of landlord, I'd say, who can do this on their own.
No, that's awesome. Now just for those individuals that might not really understand what's going on, what would be your we do quick fire questions here quickly. What would be your five maybe free advice, quick fire advice as to somebody now owning a property and what needs to be done?
Sure thing. Number one, it's not only about the commission. Consider the total cost of a bad tenant. We spoke about not paying rent. We spoke about the damage, through the inspections. And if this guy ends up being a squatter, so there's a cost to that. Even if you're not using another agent, make sure you get the best compliant lease property. Then at least spend a bit of money on a property law attorney to give you a proper lease agreement. That's some good advice. I can't estimate enough the value of good screening, and it's verifying the employment. Checking that payslip. Check with the bank that bank account number exists and is there, and it's not a fraudulent document. Call an ex-landlord. He's going to put a landlord reference on there. Call it out, have a chat, find out what this tenant was like. Why is he leaving? Why didn't he stay on? And obviously do that full and correct inspection at the end. Document it. Include photographs. Wherever possible.
No, thank you so much for that, Harry.
Thank you so much, Harry.
Yeah, I think I've never actually had the opportunity to sit in and chat to you, Harry. I've listened to your interviews with the likes of Alan Nasedi in the past, and I'm blown away by the amount of advice and the things that you actually don't as a landlord, as an individual,
And
think
the things
about.
that you take for
You
granted
do
too.
actually. I have to agree. But
Thank you, Harry. We're not done yet.
no,
though.
I mean
You guys are most welcome. Really, it's always a pleasure chatting to you. And as you know, as far as my joke earlier about the biased or unbiased estate agent, really, not every single landlord is our desired client. There are guys who can do this and should do this on their own.
Yeah.
But I mean, these are the things that, if you're going to be doing it, then do it yourself and do it properly.
Do a
That's what
thorough
you want,
job.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Harry. We still need to check out the property of the week.
yes, we do. Kerry, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. Thank you very much for being with us. Apparently, there is an amazing property on the market this week that you want to chat to us about.
Yes, let me tell you.
Please.
Okay. So it's a charming 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom duplex style apartment. It is in a complex called Brightwater View, which is a very short walk to Ferndale on Republic. It has a spacious open plan lounge dining room, which leads to a private balcony. And then upstairs, you'll go up and you'll find the main bedroom with an ensuite. And that bedroom also has a private balcony.
Ooh.
So you can have your morning coffee there and everything, and there's a great view.
Nice.
It's a safe and secure property. It has 2 parkings. It's fiber ready. There's a lovely kitchen with ample cupboard space. It is literally a place not to miss.
Oh, nothing wrong, especially on a winter's morning. Just going to sit out on that
Exactly.
balcony with a nice cup of joe and a rusk or something, and just soaking in that sun just to kind of get warm because it's been so chilly
No,
these days.
exactly.
And that is
Beautiful,
that
yeah.
is a nice area. I used to live up there, there by Ferndale on Republic. It's quite a lovely area to live in. There's a lot happening. You're close to everything. If you want to come to Sandton, it's not that far off.
No,
If you want to be in Randburg, you're not that far off. You want to step onto the highway to Midrand, you're not that far off as well. So it's a great property, or at least area to live in. So how much is this property? What's the price on it?
So what's lovely, it's less than $1 million. So it's going for 980,000. And yeah, that's a really good price for that property. They usually go for more. So that's a steal. And then if you want to get hold of me and want to come and view it, you can call me on 082 886 5629.
Can you give us those details again, Carrie?
I can. So you call me on 082 886 5629.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me, and hopefully this will be a good property.
I think so. I think it's an incredible property. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Carrie.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kerry, and have yourself a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Ciao, bye.
And as always, if you're buying, selling, renting, or investing in property, speak to the team at Etchells & Young Property Brokers. These are the people that will hook you up with whatever it is that you need.
Oh, that's for sure. So let's get back to the music this afternoon right here on 919. And thank you again from Etchells & Young and Kerry and Harry this afternoon.
919. Uplifting beats, positive energy, all day long. Positive music, positive people.
Let's do it.
919.